Today we're going into the Zechariah chapter 14. I'll be reading verse 1 and 2. A day of the Lord is coming, when your plunder will be divided among you. I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem to fight against it. The city will be captured, the houses ransacked, and the woman raped. Half of the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be taken from the city. Zechariah chapter 14 is known to be very hard to interpret. For example, Martin Luther, he wrote interpretation of this Zechariah in Latin, but he gave up to interpret chapter 14. And so-called millennium, 천년 왕국, millennium theory came out of one of the texts which millennium came out is Zechariah chapter 14. So it is very hard to interpret. First of all, hard to translate. However, if we read like childlike mind, it's not that hard. It's just God is trying to show us a picture. And all we need to see is that picture. Because he's obviously talking about the future event. The future event, rather than understanding cognitively, but his people want to see the picture so that we could have a vision in our life. And like most of the Bible, it's so childish. If we read the child mind, Zechariah chapter 14 is so childish, or naive, or innocent. And I'll just summarize it very briefly, because next week we're going to look at this chapter 14 one more time. And we will be looking at the text a bit more seriously and detailed fashion. However, today, you just have a glimpse of feeling this chapter 14 is throwing at us. 1 and 2, verse 1 and 2. On that day, I will call all the nations to punish you. I mean, if God want to punish Jerusalem, punish it. Why he calls all the nations? However, I look after those who are on my side, remnant. And after all, God is also sided. Verse 3 to 8, I will personally fight on that day, and as I go out, the mountain olives will be split. It's a bit less skilled than ninja. When he come down on the mountain, he come down so hard, the mountain split. On that day of darkness, I will alone be the light and the water. Okay. Verse 9 through 15. On that day, I'll be the only king. I'll be the only king. A bit childish. When I lower the world, all my enemies will rot, but my side will get all the treasure, gold and silver, all the brand names. Actually, that's on the text. And last section of the chapter 14, 16 to 21, all the nations will come to Jerusalem to worship me and celebrate the feast of the tabernacles. Those who came to the covenant journey, 언약의 순례, you will know the importance of the feast of the tabernacles. That's just key thing through which God is trying to establish in this history. Those who don't come will have no rain. What a God. Give them some moral, okay? On that day, everything will be sanctified, but not a Canaanite. After all, he doesn't forgive. Does he? So, if we read as plainly, chapter 14 is so childish. Actually, Bible has a lot of that. I mean, why God need to test Abraham to sacrifice your own son? Does he really have to do that? And also, actually, every event. And surprisingly, one that is most like God in their nature, innocence, naivety, or childishness. If I put in positive term, childlike. And I don't know how much difference there are in between. However, the person who is most like God is surprisingly David. The way he confessed. I mean, if you are adulterous enough, you cannot say those things. There are army cover the whole field, and there are general never been defeated by, and your army is small. You don't have much. I mean, on the situation that anyone could say the war, battle doesn't belong to sword and shield, but belong to Yahweh God. It looks good. Actually, we cannot do that because it's so childish, unreasonable. So, what is Bible? What is it that God really tried to convey to us, communicate to us? To help out that, I'd like to share the second part of this message. I'll share the Friedrich Nietzsche's book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And Nietzsche is a poor guy, most misunderstood and condemned because of, inconfidence of Christianity. And Christianity thought Nietzsche is attacking the Christianity. He did, he was. But he is not the only one. And people usually never read the Nietzsche. They always quick to evaluate, judge his writings and himself. And the key thing, probably you already heard about it. He said, God is dead. God is dead. God should die. And actually, God actually died. But when he says God is dead, he's not talking about that God. God human-made. God human-made. Unless God human-made die, true God cannot reveal. Historically, personally, individually, there is God we made, convenient for us, comfortable for us. Always, it's easy to use to justify my position, my life, easy to condemn others. After all, unless that God dies, the true God, we cannot encounter. And I think he is the one who really telling the truth, whether he's right or wrong. God's point is not right and wrong. God's point is true or untrue. Like a prodigal son. The firstborn, always doing the right thing. Secondborn, dare to say the truth. And who inherits the heir is the second-born. So Christianity, and we made our own salvation, we made our own guarantee, we made all these things. But God's point may be a little bit different than our perceptions, our perspectives. And Nietzsche, I'll tell you just one incident of Nietzsche. When he was 45, it was January. Some people say it's January 3rd, some people say January 7th. Nobody knows, it's not important. He went out. He was ill for the winter. He got the illness from the war, Prussian and French war. There he got the illness. And also his family was, genetically, there are some defects. So he was when he was 45, he was ill for whole winter. And he got better, he came out. And there, at the time, there is no pavement. So after winter, the frozen land was a little bit begin to melt down. And there was a court carrying the huge weight on his back. And the feet was into that wet, swampy ground. And it doesn't move well. So the owner, with a whip, just hitting harder and harder this court. And Nietzsche just jumped into the court and blocking that whipping. And he struggled with the owner, and there he fell down. Apparently, when he fell down, he had injury on his brain, which was weaker part of himself. And thereafter, a few years later, he died. He is that kind of person. And he basically, main thing of his story is, we have a slave's motor, not self-motor. So, which means virtue. Our virtue is not creating the values, but rather blind submission to the value that is given. The world says, do this, do that, and you will be a good person. We blindly submit it. One of the examples is a brand name. Having a brand name is a good thing. Does anybody examine that? Is it really good? Is it really valuable? But look at the whole world, without even thinking it. Their whole life is poured out to get that brand name. Seems wasting not only this precious time, the precious life itself. And this thus spoke to Zarathustra. Zarathustra saying that when he was coming up from the water, there was a midget on his shoulder. And this midget is called gravity spirit. Try to suppress the Zarathustra. And that's what happened to everybody. As soon as we are born, human is the only one who stands vertically. All the animals, parallel with the ground. Human is against that gravity and looking up the sky. However, that gravity spirit upon our shoulder try to suppress. And drop of lead into my brain cell. saying all the time, freedom is absurd thing. No one can really be free. Don't waste your life on those kind of things. Obey to the given value. Obey to the given value. Do what people ask you to do. You will get applause. So in that book, it's very little section, but actually they're telling the whole theme of the book is human going through 3 stages. The first is camel. Camel is known for patience, right? Heat of desert can even block him. And walking on the desert without water several days, no problem. No matter how heavy the load may be, he carries. And Nietzsche says, one thing you should look at this animal carefully is claws of the knee. He knelt down so many times, there are thick callus on his knee. He always gratifies the master world. And himself is always shabby and very poor. Never say no to the master. Entire human life. Never say no to the world. Although not happy, not satisfied, sometimes confusing, sometimes I don't even know why I am doing this, I'm living like this, but never said no. He says it's a sacred no. Believe life should be hard. Life shouldn't be easy. That's what this camel believes. Camel, don't think about animal, okay? The character of the camel. In life, suffering is always necessary. Actually, life is to bear the suffering. And Nietzsche says, very important thing. He meets the world. World become desert. That kind of person, wherever go, whoever he meets, whatever he does, it always becomes desert. Something you need to bear down. You should never enjoy. You should never be happy. Time to time might seek the pleasure, but you don't believe in happiness. And the camel become a lion if you want to escape from it. Lion is filled with resentment. I cannot explain to you. Applause and resentment is a key term to understand the Nietzsche. And if you are interested, you could go in. These days, after all, research is so easy these days, right? And lion is never comply with anything. If you want to give us some command to the lion, you have to risk your own life. His passion to be free allows no one to be a master. He is always and his goal is to fight with the dragon. Dragon with the golden scales. And each scale is written, thou shalt, thou shalt. Soon as we are born, this whole world is telling us thou shalt. Thou shalt be 착해. Thou shalt obey to your parents. Thou shalt obey your pastor. Thou shalt, thou shalt, thou shalt, thou shalt. Each scale. Guess how many scales in the dragon has? infinite thou shalt. That's our life. And this lion has a sacred no to those thou shalt. And Jesus said the same thing, didn't he? Prodigal son. No to the most essential thing. That truth also grow up to be the real truth, that where I truly belong to. Unless I deny the false belongingness, I cannot have a true belongingness. Person who say yes to everything, it's not yes to no thing. We have to be a lion to be free, to able to say no. When he meets the world, he makes the world his kingdom. However, reversal comes. Nietzsche says, however, he becomes exhausted to fight with the dragon. For him, the world is not desert, yet nor a pleasant place to enjoy. It's continuous fighting. And Nietzsche says, you truly want to be free, truly want to be yourself, you want to live out who you are, who you meant to be, who you created to be, you have to be a child. You have to be. Child is innocent, simple, naive, and free. The interesting thing is, law and ethic, all the human system cannot judge a child. Cannot judge a child. Child never, child just innocently smile. Child is a moral thing. It's beyond the moral. You cannot judge a child with the moral. Child even smiles at dragon. Dragon who won over the lion cannot win over a child. When dragon appears, child makes it toy. Isn't it wonderful? Hello. I hope you are still there. Are you following me? I have lost faith and very confident that I feel like I'm talking alone. I guess I'm talking alone in the home, talking alone in the church. What a poor guy. I thought it's marvelous. When dragon appears, child makes it toy. That's how you truly win. Winning does not come through the fight. I mean, isn't it obvious things? I'm sorry that I always use example through the married relationship, husband and wife, which I have so much complex. That's why. Henny, why are you laughing like that? That's easiest to show the human truth. Once couple get married, without knowing, almost unconsciously, subconsciously, they are in the battle. They fight. Very cunning techniques. Very cunning techniques. There are who using sacrifice as arms. I'm so sacrificial to this family, so you should listen to me. There are obviously absurd and bit less intelligent way. Try to exercise power, whether physical or emotional or language, very low grade of fighting. But remember, through fighting, true winning never comes. True winning comes, you make it toy. You just enjoy it. For him, words, when child meets the world become the playground. Playground. The playground, sometimes you fight. But fighting in the playground makes you closer together. Did you ever see a child? They fight and cry. About 5 minutes later, they are playing again. Not good way. Like us, once we fight, forever enemy. Child enjoys everything. What am I saying here? Am I saying that you should believe in Friedrich Nietzsche? Nietzsche doesn't use the term spirit because at his time, the Christianity is horrible. It suppresses people, control people with the eternal reward and punishment. And they messed up everything. Actually, at the time, most of educated people studied theology, and Nietzsche also studied theology also. He tried to avoid Christian terms to share the truth. A human, creation of God, image of God, human who has God's life, never should be defined by others. You never seek the applause from others. You live out your own spirit. But we know the gravity spirit on our shoulder makes it so hard. Even people come to church. They're looking for the recognition of acceptance of the people. When they have that, they feel like they are good faith Christian, which essentially has nothing to do. And St. Paul is one that really struggled all his life with this spirit and flesh. And I don't think we really understand him well when he says spirit and flesh, 영과 육. There are hundreds of verses I could show you, but I'll just share one because in the end, preaching goes over 30 minutes. Everybody goes not only asleep but to dead. So I'll share one verses, actually two verses connected together. 1 Corinthians 2:14. The man without spirit does not accept the things that comes from the Spirit of God. When our spirit is not alive, we don't really accept things of God. God is spirit. Things of God. We may understand. We may even study and talk about it. But that never is our reality. Reality is always physical circumstance. My circumstance, that's reality, but never things of God. For they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they are spiritually discerned. And without spirit alive, we have no way to know and understand the spiritual thing of God. The spiritual man makes judgment about all things. Spiritual man really knows everything. But himself is not subject to any man's judgment. No one can really judge. So Nietzsche, when he talks about child, he's really talking about child in us. This is called the spirit. Spirit cannot contaminate by the world. Spirit cannot be captured by the knowledge of the world. After all, knowledge of the world is covering up this little planet called the Earth. Beyond that is absolute. And I'll conclude my message that then how can we live the Spirit? How can my spirit come to life? Listen very carefully. First thing we have to know is all human spirit is dead. All. Dead means disconnected. Life means connected. Just branch, my arm, disconnected from me. It will dead. I mean, few seconds, few minutes, it's still alive. There are some sign of life, but after a few minutes, it will be dead. Human spirit is dead, disconnected from God. That is a result of sin. Sin means disconnected from God. You follow me? So we are disconnected from God, meaning that we are sinful. That doesn't mean that simple in human moral ethic sense. I mean, that included. But the essential thing about the sin is disconnection from God. So spirit is by nature cannot be disconnected. I mean, body, flesh, physical reality is separated. But the spirit has no physical reality. How can you be disconnected? How can there be boundary or anything? It's just God. In God, everything is together, united, one. Now, if we understand that, the question is only one thing. How can I be reconnected to God, who is a spirit? How can my spirit reconnected to God? Okay? Are you still thinking about when he is going to finish his message? I'll let you know in 5 minutes. Now, how that can happen? Connection of my dead spirit with God's spirit. It happened on the cross. Jesus came to the world as a flesh. Now, he is sinless. He never sinned. That means his spirit is still alive. Follow me here, right? When his body is broken, his spirit is flowing out. The key thing in the Bible is brokenness. This separates the Bible from all other religion, all other philosophy, all other human things. All those things are good. But if you carefully examine the mystery of brokenness, only in the Bible. When his body is broken, the living spirit is no boundary, so infinite stream of the living spirit flowing out of him. That's why St. Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, he calls it spirit gives life. That spirit of Jesus is spirit that gives life. So his spirit is flowing out eternally, infinitely, anyone who is connected with that spirit, that spirit come back to life because it's connected. I mean, that is circuit, right? Outlet. Right now, maybe the microphone is there because it's disconnected. Once it's connected, it comes to life again. That's such a good example. However, how do we be reconnected to the Spirit of Jesus Christ? Here comes Christianity. You're just saying, I believe. You're just saying, I believe. What if you believe for your own benefit? You harden yourself more. You make your flesh thicker. So in the Christianity, so many people, reality of God, Spirit of God, God's spiritual world is never the reality. My physical circumstance, that's always my reality. And every religion, I mean, even if you don't have a religion, people say good things to you at the end. Have you ever attended a funeral? Hey, that person went to a very, very terrible place. Nobody dared to say it because it is true. It is true. When it's true, it's very hard to say. When Paul says, you believe in your heart, confess through your mouth, he never said meant lip service. He meant the brokenness. Brokenness. When I realized my disconnected spirit, in this whole world, nothing is more sorrowful, nothing is more painful, nothing is more agony. When I just suppressed all my things, but when I really look at myself, there is a deep loneliness because disconnected. There is a deep fear and anxiety because I'm disconnected. Life is when connected. It always gives a spirit and the power. When you have very hard situation, if you know that one person understands you, not that person's perspective, that person understands from my perspective, that person, he or she feels the way I fear, you suddenly begin to see the hope. I could get up and I could restart. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. Spirit is infinite. So through the brokenness of our heart, His spirit and our spirit reconnected. And what do these days Christianity says? Come to church, come to church. God will be good to you. You know, He'll give you money, He'll give you a blessing. You just say, Jesus is my Lord and Savior, then yeah. We all did that. But do we really experience the blessing? Do we really enjoy the power of blessing? No. Because devil has deceived. That little transitional point, that pivot point, the most important point, that little point, in the pivot point, right? You see the New York, New Jersey area has many bridges. Each bridge's weight is unbelievably heavy. All the bridges, do you know? Bridges, when it comes to be, it's a point smaller than pinpoint. That's why the bridge is sustained. You have no idea what I'm talking about. This heavy bridge, the 40-feet container truck runs, it has so much power, so much weight, right? So if the bridge is fixed, it will just crack down in a probably less than a year. But that heavy thing come into the hinge like this. So when the power comes, the bridge itself the span itself become very flexible. That pinpoint, that pivot point, my brokenness and God's brokenness come together. And that pinpoint can carry the weight of the whole world, weight of all life. There, my spirit is connected. I hope we don't waste Sunday morning just to keep the Sabbath. Whole history is Sabbath. Whole world is Sabbath. Enjoy. Don't fight. Enjoy. Henry, stop fighting. I don't care if Philly wins, Matthew wins. They're at the bottom anyway. Let's pray.